Chapter 13, No-Tell Motel. Stryker lay on his back on the rumpled motel bed, staring up at the smoke-stained ceiling. From his cigarette rose a trail of toxins, adding to the ugly yellow-brown abstract painting on the ceiling. Life in the motel room was tedious and boring. Sitting all day watching soap operas and sitcoms really began to play on a guy. Gave you a serious bout of cabin fever. Hopefully, within a few days, he would be heading down the highway toward a new destination, a new identity, a new start in life. He had called several friends in hopes of a temporary loan and now waited to hear back from someone with good news. He had gotten some maybes to his request, but nothing solid, nothing that would pay the rent. With luck, by the end of the day, he would get his money, get out of town, and most importantly, get out of this stinking motel room. If only someone would get back to me, he thought. If only it will be soon enough before they find me. Two men sat in their car waiting. This was the location that their target was hiding. It was a motel in the older part of downtown. The area city council tried to hide in order to make the city look more presentable to the more upstanding, respectable citizens. The enforcer behind the steering wheel slipped on his brass knuckles, checked the 9mm pistol under his coat, and then looked at his partner. "Let's wait a couple more minutes until he gets here. He's running late," he told his sidekick, while glancing in the rearview mirror for any sign of their boss's 4x4 truck. This was going to be a harder job than the ones he had done in the past. Those people were strangers, but he knew Stryker, had hung out with him, had worked out with him at the gym. Why did he have to go and steal from their boss anyway? That was definitely the most stupid decision of his life. Soon he would have to pay for the error of his ways. He and his partner were given strict instructions. Stryker was to be captured and made an example, discouraging all others who thought it might be profitable to steal from their boss. The enforcer shook his head in sympathy as he thought of what lay in store for this young man they were closing in on. His boss had given him some idea of the retribution that was going to fall on Stryker's head. It was to be brutal for sure. He began to clench and loosen his fists, ready himself for the action that was soon to take place. While waiting, the enforcer began to watch the pedestrians walking by on the street. Some were local street people, while others were businessmen and women and other normal-type people working or shopping in the downtown area. He could only imagine what they would think about him and his partner. Goons, thugs, violent criminals, dregs of the earth. Although his face remained serious, he could not help but laugh at the hypocrisy of the average middle-class city resident. Self-righteous bunch, the whole lot of them, he thought to himself. He put his hand on his stomach, touching a scar where a bullet had exited a few years earlier. The gas station owner had shot him in the back as he was running off with his money. He remembered the comments made by some of those hypocrites at that time. "Dirty thief, don't feel sorry for him at all. Lock him up, throw away the key. He had it coming to him. Stealing's against the law." Is it possible some of the enforcers' disgust was justified? Law-abiding citizens often demand stricter laws and sentences for the dishonest members of society, yet some of those people would have no problem stealing from their bosses. They just do it in a different way. They call in sick when they really aren't. They sneak things here and there. All are forms of stealing, but they don't view it that way. "Oh, that's different," they tell themselves. Their kind of stealing doesn't seem as bad to them, but they don't live up to their own moral standard either. The self-respecting person can deceive himself in a way that the hardened criminal cannot. The criminal lost that luxury early on in his descent into his lawless lifestyle. The respectable man has found a way to effectively hide the darkness in the deepest recesses of his soul, where no one can see it. There, in the secret arena of his mind, he has done horrendous acts to others, killed those he hated, and in lustful imaginings committed adultery with his best friend's wife or the honey next door. At times, this ugliness and violence even spills out through his lips, spewing hurtful and hateful words to those who have angered or crossed him, inflicting wounds that may never go away. Yet he still looks at himself in the mirror each morning convinced he's a good guy, simply because he doesn't allow this sewage to pour out into his actions. Self-deception is a very convincing liar because the one being lied to wants to believe it. These individuals call for laws to curtail the same evil on the city streets that they allow to dwell freely in the concourse of their minds. Their desire for violence and lust is revealed by their choices of entertainment. The difference between them and the criminal often isn't a matter of moral superiority, but of courage. They are prevented from acting out their thoughts by their fear of exposure, destroyed reputation, or punishment. The enforcer continued his internal rant. Their lily-white exterior is only skin deep, he sneered. Below that goody-goody surface is a monster just like us. They want to do what we do, but they're afraid of getting caught. No, they really aren't that different from us, he decided. They just haven't devolved to the point we have. They think we woke up one day and started acting like vicious animals, but that's not how it happens. We were like them once upon a time. Their alteration in character and behavior didn't happen overnight. Instead, almost imperceptibly, through a series of painful circumstances, stupid compromises, poor companions, and slowly we changed. The enforcer shook himself a little. He didn't like to think about how he had descended into such depths of evil that he wouldn't have dreamed of 10 years ago. He was suddenly jolted from his rancorous thoughts by the flash of a yellow in the rearview mirror. The boss was here. Time to bag the prey. The two men got out of the car and went around to the driver's door of the yellow 4x4 truck. The man inside was brief and to the point. He gave them their instructions and then drove around to the back of the motel. The two enforcers looked at each other, nodded, and then headed toward the motel. All hell was about to break out in Stryker's world.